As you recall in an earlier training video when we started creating our fields within our tables, I briefly went over the properties of some of the fields. For example, let me come up here and right click on the tab, go to the design view. Any field that I select up above will display its corresponding field properties down below. I want to cover now some more properties that will help you when it comes to controlling the data that's being entered into that field. So for example, let's say that the front-end user is entering in text in a text field and it's all lowercase, but you like it displayed in uppercase. You can go ahead and add a little code down below. In this case, I'm going to do it for the department field. Come down here into its corresponding format field and add the greater than symbol. Hit the tab key. Let's go ahead and click on the view button. Be sure to save your work. Click yes. Come over here to the department and let's type in a lowercase letter. Hit the tab key and there we go. It displays it in uppercase. Doesn't convert it because when I go back into it, click inside it, it displays it as it was originally entered, lowercase r. And if I want to go ahead and change it, use the shift key, and then when you're done, just go ahead and click in a record below to save it. Another example is that when it comes to creating these fields, I have them named the way I'd like to see them, but then again, I'm not going to be the front-end user. So if I have a front-end user that doesn't understand what DEPT is, and they're annoyed with that, I can please us both by coming up here and right-clicking on the tab, going down to the design view, keep my naming convention here, shortened to the point, but for them, select the field that they don't like the name as currently displayed in the datasheet view, then come down here in its field properties in the caption cell and type in whatever you'd like to be displayed in the datasheet view form. I mean, some people have to have it spelled out. There it is, department. Hit the tab key. Before I go ahead and switch views and show you that it really does work, I want to go over one more field property here, the allow zero length. Now some database designers will use this. You can be creative and probably get by without it, but in any case, allow zero length, the definition of it is that right now the default's no, but when it's turned to yes, it allows a string that contains no characters. How does that work? Well, if you type in a pair of quotes with no space in between it, that's a string that contains no characters. Let me see if I can come up with a good example of why you may want to use this. Some database designers use this to indicate that the data entry knows the no value that exists for that field. Instead of just skipping over the field, they just type in an open and close quotes. Because if they skip over it, it'll enter in a null or empty value. At least this way, when we set this to yes, it'll allow that double quotes with no space in between them, or zero length, string to be added to this field. You won't be able to see it after you type in the open close quotes with no space, but it'll be there. So that way, when you're doing queries and you want to enter in some criteria that says, okay, find me all the fields that have a zero length string, type it in, it pulls it up, as opposed to those fields that they just skipped over, that they didn't enter anything in it. So for this example, the department, maybe we just typed in a zero length string, indicating that the employee doesn't belong to a department that we did check, as opposed to leaving it blank and some other data entry coming in here and going, we still need to find out. I mean, like I said, you can use this or you can be creative and just say, look, type in the text, no department. In any case, let's go ahead and test it. I'm going to leave it as no so I can show you that it won't allow that unless you set it to yes. Come up here, click on the view button, save our work, yes. And then before we do that, remember we had our DEPT for department. Well, when I hover over to the right of it, till my pointer turns into arrows pointing in opposite directions, double click really fast or click and drag. Oh, there we go. The front-end user now gets what they want without me having to compromise on the way I like it named in the design view. Okay, zero length string, which is for department. If I come in here, delete that, and right now it doesn't allow it. So if I do open and close quotes, no space, so there's zero length, hold down the shift key and hit enter, it says you cannot add a zero length string. Click OK, hit the escape key to not save it, go back to the design view, and then you can come over here and click on the drop down arrow and select yes, but to me that's too slow. Double click, goes to no, double click, goes to yes. Okay. So if I go ahead and switch views now and enter an open and close quotes, it'll allow the zero length string. In fact, there's a little bit more to it if you want to read up on it. Just click in this field, hit the F1 key on the keyboard, opens up the help for that. And again, it talks about it here and it says if you want Microsoft Access to store a zero length string instead of an empty or null value, when you leave a blank field, then it gives you the requirements, the least of which is to allow a zero length string by changing it to yes. In fact, you can come up here and click on the plus sign and there's the definition of a zero length string. Okay, close out, set it to yes, click on the view button, click yes to save it, come over here, type in open close quotes, shift enter, there's no space, I didn't get an error, it saved it to allow that zero length string. And it's not going to display the quotes, it's just going to be stored there. I'm going to go ahead and type in TR because I'd rather have them tied to the training department. Shift enter. When it comes to entering in a new employee, the new employee typically works 40 hours a week, okay? So if I come up here and select on the hours field, the default value is 0. Well, what's the point in having an employee if they don't work at all? So I'm going to change the default to 40. Hit the tab key. That way if I'm typing in a lot of records, we've hired a lot of new employees, that's one less thing I have to enter in. Speed up my data entry. Let's do another one. Let's look at pay rate. Now for the pay rate, I want to be able to restrict this cell to less than $30 an hour. First select it down below in its corresponding field properties, click in the validation rule, and type in less than, the less than symbol, and then the number that it needs to be less than, then hit the tab key. So when somebody enters in a new record and tries to type in 30 or more, it's not going to save it. In fact, it would be nice to give them some sort of validation text so we can go ahead and type in. Now remember, if we want it to be equal to or less than, when it comes to equaling, it has to be to the right of the less than or greater than symbol. Can't be to the left, otherwise you're going to get errors, always to the right. I'm going to double click and change that to yes. Enter something in that field. Okay, let's go ahead and take it for a test drive. Come up here, click on the View button. Be sure to save your work. I have some employees that are making more than $30 an hour, so it doesn't really go with that validation rule there, less than 30. We'll go ahead and click yes, we'll continue. I know it violates, click yes, keep going. And you can see the pay rates here, greater than 30. But if I come down here, click on the New Record button, and I start down here, Employee 1-35, notice how the default value is 40, not 0. We set that, remember, for the hours field, so wow, I don't have to waste time there, I can just tab over it. And then the pay rate, if I hold down the Shift key and hit Enter, it saves it because it's not blank, it's paying $0. But if I delete it, and it didn't have the default 0 there, and I held down the Shift key and hit Enter, then it says, okay, you got to enter in a value, even if it's 0. Okay, that doesn't work. I mean, nobody's going to work for 0. But what if we try to enter in something like equal to or greater than 30? Hold down the Shift key and hit Enter. There's our validation text that comes up. It says, must enter a value under 30. Okay, I get it. So let's go ahead and type in $29, hit the Tab key, and, type in the rest here. And then when we're done, Shift Enter to save it. Now, on that same note, when it comes to entering in my employee ID, the first couple letters have to always be EE. I can go ahead and set up a validation rule for this cell that says, okay, the first couple letters always has to be EE. Go ahead and right-click. Let's go to our design view for the employee ID field. Come down here into its corresponding field property for the validation rule. You can see over here that limits the values that can be entered into this field, and it's going to be EE asterisk. The asterisk is the wild card. That means anything. So EE, and then anything that comes after it doesn't matter. The first two characters have to be EE. When I hit the Tab key upon exit, Access comes in, cleans it up for me, says, okay, you have to write it like this, then put the quotes around it. Like I said, if it's going to do it for me, I'm not eager to go ahead and remember that and keep typing it in. And then, of course, some validation text, so when somebody forgets to type in the first couple letters EE, that this is what they'll see. Okay, let me go ahead and right-click on that to zoom in so you can see everything that I typed. Employee ID must begin with, not EEK, EE, followed by 1. Then a dash, then additional digits. I mean, I could have just left it as the employee ID must begin with EE, but I wanted to give them a little bit more. Go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and save it. Again, we're changing the rules on a field that Access was already used to set one way. Let's go ahead and say yes, we want to process the new rules. Click on the View button. Come down here, let's enter in our first record, and let's say it's EK. Shift Enter to save it. And there we go. Employee ID must begin with E, followed by 1, then a dash. I mean, if we start to enter this record off for the first time, then we want to pay attention to it. But I can see from the examples up above that, I guess it better be EE. And then go ahead and type in the rest of the data. Shift Enter to save it, and we're good to go. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.